their offensive tackles have actually been a little vulnerable. I mean, if you look at Michigan, they've given up 19 sacks, but JJ McCarthy's only thrown the ball 314 times. UW's given up 11 sacks, but passed the ball literally 200 more times.
Time, and when they make those adjustments, they're always making better adjustments than our counterparts. And I think Kalen DeBoer is a blue blood killer. And I think
I
our
like that.
I
I
think
like that.
Noah, when you're watching this Michigan team, what jumps off the tape to you?
These teams are like oddly familiar. And when I say that, I don't mean like in so much in like playing style, but more like personnel, more like coaching staffs, a very veteran like oriented team. When you kind of look at that roster, man, they're littered with redshirt sophomores, juniors, seniors, COVID seniors or whatever we're calling them, these days. And it's
Yeah.
like, dude, the coaching staff did a great job, man, just like UW with kind of recruiting a lot of these guys that could have went to the NFL last year and had them come back for like, dude, what was the Michael Jordan, Chicago Bulls, ESPN, like one last dance or whatever it was, right?
Hmm.
I think that was like the mantra both of these teams really used. It was like, let's try to get one last dance, out of this team. And dude, that's why you see Michigan versus UW in the national championship.
Okay. I think when you're looking at it, you're breaking down the roster. You're completely right. They got JJ McCarthy, pulling the trigger. He threw for 2,800 yards, 22 TDs, and only 4 interceptions with a 73% completion percentage. So I know his rate is really, really high. They got three receivers who are pretty good. None of them have over 45 catches, but Roman Wilson does have 12 touchdowns, and that's definitely something to be talked about. And then, of course, you got Blake Corum, who had 1,100 yards, 16 touchdowns. Or was it 16 touchdowns? Is that what I'm seeing? Am I reading?
25 touchdowns.
25 touchdowns, excuse
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
which is huge. And they got that big offensive line who, the last 2 years, they were the Joe Moore Award winners. So it's not going to be an easy task for the defense. Um, Izzo, what did you see when you saw it when you were looking at Michigan?
Yeah, I think their scheme it's creative for what they have. Like I think does a really good job of getting the most out of the talent at the skill positions that he has. Like
Mhm.
obviously we all know Blake Corum, like he's an absolute stud. He's definitely going to be playing on Sundays. He does everything really well. But also he does a really good job. There's a play against Bama where it was either their first or second touchdown where
Yeah,
they
that
had
mesh concept, yeah, that was
yes,
filthy. Yep.
that was filthy. Where he gets three tight ends, he brings them across the field. They basically act as active blockers, but they're all running routes. It's super creative, and then Corum breaks out off to the other side, and I mean, no one was within like 10 yards of him, 15 yards of him, and that's in the red zone. So this is not this is not Texas in the red zone. And I think that's been that was their Achilles heel all year. Obviously, at the end of this game, we were all scratching our heads about like what were those four plays that you had at the end of the game. We basically gifted you a potential touchdown to end the game and just bad play calling. That is not going to be the case here. You're not
Yeah.
going to get gifts down in the red zone. So there's a pathway for Michigan here, and I'm not nearly as confident as I was against Texas in this game. I do think if you're putting odds on it, I think that personally, having torn through everything, and when you bring in the factor, the Michael Penix factor, the offense, the firepower that these guys have not faced. Michigan has not faced a defense anywhere in the ballpark of University of Washington. I'm sorry, I can't be
You
convinced.
mean offense?
Yes, excuse me, offense.
Yeah.
They
And,
have
and
not. It's not even close. So
Noah had put this in the thing. He said elite type defense versus elite type offense.
yeah,
You know,
that's accurate.
and I think that is what it is. I one of the things though that kind of stuck out to me because we've heard a lot about how UW is got a susceptible defense, and we're gonna get way more deep into all of this. But an interesting stat that I heard on the radio was UW faced eight top 50 offenses during the year. Michigan only faced one, and that was Ohio State. And so when you look at their defense, a lot of and their offense, because they also scored a lot of points. They did a lot of this against teams like Rutgers and like Nebraska and teams that were really susceptible and weren't really extremely great offensively. Um, and so I want to see what happens when they do face an offense like this. So let's get into the breakdown. Let's talk about how the UW pass offense versus this Michigan secondary, because Michigan's defense is definitely elite. I believe they were number one in the country, if I'm not mistaken. Um, what do we like when we looking at this defense? What's the first thing that you're like, oh wow, that's going
Yeah,
to
I
be
mean,
a problem?
yeah, if we're going to talk like, our pass offense versus their secondary, I mean, there's no question that they have some guys. I mean, you look at Josh Wallace, a very good senior transfer. I think he came from UMass, big body kid, and then Will Johnson. I mean, the sophomore on the other side. I mean, he's an elite corner, and I'm very excited to kind of see what they do with him. It seems like he's more of like a boundary corner, so I don't know if he'll actually follow Rome per se, but I'm excited to see some of the matchups between Rome and Will Johnson. But this is kind of where like my breakdown as I was looking at these at this, just these matchups is like, yeah, they have a Josh Wallace and yeah, they have a Will Johnson. But as you look into like their nickelback, with Mike, I think it's San Still, kind of an interesting name, number 0.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's a smaller guy. I mean, he's listed at 5'10", but there's absolutely no way he's 5'10". And so, and the only reason I bring that up is because, yeah, they got two nice corners, but dude, we got four wide receivers at any given time that can go up and down the field, can run routes out of any concept, out of any scheme, any layered offensive philosophy. And I mean, and Mike, you hit the nail on the head, man. As I looked at them, dude, they've only faced one top 20, top 25 ish passing offense in the country, and that was Maryland.
Yeah.
And as I looked at it even more, dude, some of the quarterbacks they faced, I mean, their top four quarterbacks, if you even want to break this down like this, the top four quarterbacks that I could even find on their schedule were Kyle McCord, Drew Aller, Little Tungavailoa, and I guess you're going to throw Jaden Milrow in there, in the last
Mm-hmm.
game. And I'm sorry, man, but none of those guys are even on the same galaxy as Michael Penix. It's not that I don't think that their defense is elite. I think their defense is damn good.
Yeah, you can tell.
I just am not sure. Yeah, they have all the stats, and yeah, they got studs. I just don't know how well they've been honestly tested.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of my thought. I mean, I talked to a couple of Ohio State buddies of mine, and Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Fleming and Emeka Buka and all these big time receivers, but they were all saying, dude, there's a reason Kyle McCord left. He just wasn't the guy. And they I think only won that game 27-20, and
Mhm.
I don't know. The best way I can say is I just don't know if they've truly been tested on that back end.
Yep. And I mean, and when you look at, and when you think about what our pass offense does, a lot of that has to do with keeping Penix clean. And I mean, their biggest sack guy is Derek Moore with 5. Or Josiah Stewart with 5.5. They don't have anybody that's a Braylon Trice on their roster.
Well, before we talk about their pass rush on this,
Yeah.
there's they it's not only their deep at corner, and like you said, they have a Saint Still is a good slot corner.
Mhm.
He definitely has not played a Jalen McMillan. He's not. None of these guys have faced any caliber of wide receiver like this outside of against Ohio State. So, with that being said, they also have some solid safeties. Rod Moore is very good. Makari Page is very good. Quentin Johnson, he's been decent. It's point being they're the deepest roster that we've played in the secondary by far. And
Yep.
so here's what I think about this. We can go through grades in these guys and talk about their size and I think the biggest factor for the secondary is that they tackle better than any secondary that we've played, and it's not even close. Everybody on this defense is ferocious in tackling. They come downhill,
Yeah.
but
They have a lot of guys that can tackle, and I actually had missed one on the pass rush. They have Jalen Harrell, who has 6.5 sacks. That's their number one guy. But and they have three guys with over 5 sacks, or with 5 sacks or more. But it's between 5 and 6.5.
And
And
we'll talk
so
about we should
yeah,
talk about their
yeah.
pass.
Well, yeah, and and that's kind of when we're talking about what the secondary, and I want to build on your point, Izzo, is the secondaries are only as good as what happens to Penix. And if Penix is under pressure, these secondaries look a lot better. But like we saw what happened with Texas, when he's got time to throw, these defenses, and I've been, I was talking with my brother about this morning. These defenses aren't necessarily built to play an offense like this. They're built for this traditional style of football where you're playing this smash mouth, uh, you know, run opens the pass type offenses. And when you put a pass opens the run type offense, like what we do with UW, we've seen what happens. They're hard to stop. And I think that's what's going to make the big difference about it. I don't think these corners and these safeties, as good as they are, and they have all the stars in the world, but they haven't seen an offense like this.
If I was like wearing the defensive coordinator hat for a day for Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
I think what I would really try to do is almost play like an umbrella coverage. Maybe not zone per se, but maybe mix some umbrella coverage in and have Penix throw underneath and just see, like, just let my big horses up front go to work.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you see in these games, it's like Penix will just beat you over the top, beat you over the top. And I don't really think that he's like forcing these balls. I think this is what our offenses allows him to do. But I really think if the best way you can do it is let's go 8-yard clips, 10-yard clips, 12-yard clips instead of 35 yards, 45 yards, 77-yard clips. And because I think Michigan's really going to want to slow this game down.
Yep.
And I think that's
Dude,
the best way they're going to try to do it against our offense.
and I think that's kind of what Utah did against us. They wanted Michael Penix to have to throw under. They played back and they let their playmakers or their defensive playmakers make tackles. And Izzo was just saying that this secondary can really tackle, which is different compared to what we faced with Texas, where their secondary struggled a little bit more tackling in space. And so that might be something to watch, because you're right. If they give us the 8 yards, the little 8-10 yard clips, they're going to be able to stop the big plays. And that's really what makes our offense so dynamic, is that, hey, if we're explosive and we can go over the top, we can score in 45 seconds. We don't need long sustained drives. And if you're a running team where all you got to do is constantly, run the ball and try to have 10-minute drives, once we get out ahead of you, that doesn't work catching up to us. It doesn't work at all. And
Yeah.
so I think you might be right.
Their linebackers do struggle in coverage.
Mhm.
And I know we've said this and tons of fans have said this, but we haven't really needed it to this point. Like, get the tight ends super involved. I think if Noah, to what you're saying, like if we want to get 12 to 17-yard chunks and counter them controlling the clock by us controlling the clock, that's the area of opportunity I think that we can exploit, because these guys tackle. But here's the kicker with their linebackers. They are super ferocious. Sometimes they have a tendency, I've seen, not very often. There's like very little to criticize about this defense on tape. There's almost nothing.
Mhm.
But they're so ferocious and fast that they will over pursue.
Yeah.
So if you can create some confusion, especially getting tight ends open over the middle, this is the opportunity to do so, to stay away from those corners. If in fact you do see that you're not as effective against this group, like, get those boys involved, because even if it's obviously coming down the pipe for us that we're going to start dumping it to Jack and to Devin, do it anyways, because those two are mismatches for their linebackers straight up.
Yeah, as we talk about their offensive line and and kind of going against their front seven, I I watched when you watch the Rose Bowl, you know they really said, getting ready for that game, they're like, we're not going to let Jaden Milroe beat us from running. So what
Mhm.
did they do? Dude, they put 7 in the box. They put 8 in the box at time. Dude, they were like, the linebackers would walk all the way up to the line. And that's the difference, I think, that what they won't be able to do against Penix. Don't get me wrong, man. Stewart and Barrett and McGregor and Derek Moore and Jalen Hall. I mean, I think they all had a sack or two versus Bama. But dude, Penix has played a lot of football. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is like over 50 games or something like that. I mean, dude, he can look across the line and be like, he'll check out of it. And that's the difference you'll see is, dude, you got a veteran laden quarterback who he's the offensive general. And I forget the DC's name for Michigan, but dude, he likes to show a lot of different stuff. Um, that'll probably be that's kind of what I'm excited to see is from is can they get the pressure they want when they want it without Penix being able to check out and hit one of his, Jack Westover, whatever it is. So that's kind of exciting for me to see in that matchup.
So let's say that they do the opposite of what you were talking about, Noah, where they do go drop to umbrella coverage. Let's say that they're like, hey, our corners can be more physical because they got some big corners, physical corners. Let's say that they decide, hey, we're going to come up and punch him in the mouth, and then we're going to bring a linebacker or two. To me, that just spells a monster game for Jack Westover.
Mm.
And I think that's the equalizer is that in both scenarios, if they play umbrella or if they want to come up and punch you in the mouth with against Jalen Polk, against Roma Dinze, Jalen McMillan, who are going to be lighter dudes compared to these DBs, Jack and Culp are the answer both equations to me. So we'll see how it goes.
Did you hear this really quick? Did you hear on the broadcast? I was kind of proud of them for knowing this. Did you know that Devin Culp ran a 10.600 in high school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude. After
He did, and he also was an amazing hooper, and they used to talk about him running the length of the court. Like one of the things that you were talking about, what they did against Alabama was the A gap blitzes. When USC tried to do that stuff, you started noticing those runs where what do they call that pitch play that we were talking
Yeah,
about?
toss crack.
Yeah, the toss crack. I can see that really working in our favor in a game like this, where if they think, hey, we want to put pressure on these guys, and we say we audible out of some plays, the toss crack might actually work. And that kind of brings me into what we're about to talk to next. And that's how do we see our rush offense, which, even though we didn't get a big average of the last game, it was still very effective and we scored points using it. How do we see that playing out against this really stout Michigan defense, which has guys like Colson and Barrett and Hossman, who all have a lot of tackles and play really, really good?
We talked about it with Texas, with Sweat and all those big boys up front, Murphy. I, maybe some Michigan fans will probably get some heat for this, but I mean, I really think that their defense starts right up front with their big boys again, man. I mean, I think Mason Graham, I think Chris Jenkins, him coming back for his senior year is what is like truly like the strength of that defense. And here's the difference, dude. Those boys can move. That Mason Graham, dude, he reminds me of our big boy we used to have up front.
Greg
I'm,
Gaines.
I'm for, Yep, Greg Gaines. Yeah, exactly. Dude, can we get those big D tackles to run horizontally? And I think that's what you'll have to do is I'm not sure if UW will just be able to run straight up the gut on these guys. And I mean, it's not like we look at this defense either, and we look at like McGregor, or Harrell, and we're like, well, let's just try to run at those guys.
And
I
they're
mean,
deep.
hell, those. Yeah, exactly. So that's the second point I was going to go is that's one of the thing about this front seven, dude. Their offense takes a lot of time on their drives.
Yeah.
So you know what that does for their defense?
Conditions.
It conditions them to be able to rotate, and they're always healthy, ready to go. They're not
They're
tired,
fresh.
and they're fresh. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's like it's something that we're gonna really have to scheme against. I mean, I think a really good one is we talk about like Colson and Barrett. Dude, that Ernest Hausman guy, I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah.
Dude, he's as good as anybody too. I mean, they're just deep and they play, and that front seven's ferocious. And so, dude, it's one of those games where, DJ getting him back healthy, which seems like all the indications are that, he's
gonna
kind of
play.
been, yeah, he is going to play. And he's had this foot, lingering issue. And I think getting him and then bringing Tybo in for a little change of pace, I think that's really how we'll kind of hit them is a little, what did I call it? That one, fire and ice or earth and fire.
Thunder and lightning.
Yeah, thunder and lightning. Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I see it, at least.
Well, and I mean, and I think that I was talking about this earlier, is that even if DJ has trouble going, why just pull Richard Newton off the bench? I mean, he came in a couple plays against Texas, and if we need somebody to run between the tackles, I'll tell you, whenever he gets the ball in his hands, I know he averages 6 yards a carry. And I think that if we need it, I think he's a guy that can really get us those.
Another secret weapon.
Yeah, those plays.
Dude,
if we really need it.
Dick Newton never seen open air that he hits. He only goes for people and just tries to light them up. He tries to run over everybody.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So if we're gonna look overall, if you're Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer, and you're gonna literally make your plan for how you attack this Michigan defense, what is 1, 2, and 3? What's the first thing that we're gonna do?
To me, I'm going to use the first drive to take. Honestly, I'm going to try to take a couple shots, because what I want to do is I want to get them on their heels and see how they're going to react, and then dictate whether or not I'm going to start using tight ends. And I'm going to surprise them by using Dylan Johnson to run right at their nose. And I'm not saying like sorry, I should reword that. Not right at their nose, but come right behind those offensive linemen, and don't try to break it outside with these guys. Because I'm telling you right now, this is not this linebacker group. They're fast, they're strong. I want my running backs behind blockers, and I know their defensive line is stout, but we're gonna have to ask a lot of the offensive line again in this game. And it's not like we're lacking size up front. We talk about it all the time. Our two guards are absolutely massive and they can move. And so I don't want us to, I don't want us to stray too far away from what we did against Texas, to be honest with you, except for more utilization of the tight ends, because these defensive backs are more capable.
Okay. No.
Yeah, when I think about this matchup, our offense versus their defense. I mean, dude, this is good on good. This is great on great, man. Dude, this matchup is like an NFL caliber showdown. Yeah. And dude, I'm telling you, when you look at the two deeps on these two units, man, there's 20 plus guys that probably play on Sundays.
Yeah, I agree.
And so this is dude, I'm talking, this is big boy football. This is a national championship that a lot of people are going to want to see, and it's exciting to be a part of it. But I mean, one quick thing, if I'm doing it, I know where we're elite, and we are elite in our wide receiver room. I mean, and with Michael Penix being the signal caller and the gunslinger and the flamethrower, spread them out, say, let's go. Let's see what you got. You want to see a showdown? In Houston, a little remember the Alamo gun on gunfire. Let's ride, baby. And I'm telling you, I really like our boys to be ready to go for that showdown on Monday night.
It's not like this team has just absolutely put up zeros on all these opponents that they've played. Like they give up points. It's not in garbage time either. There's been some games that are closer too. And I just wanted to point that out, because I totally agree with you. Like, we don't have to stray away from what we're good at. Play to your strengths.
And building off what Noah was just saying is, when we put those multiple wide receiver sets in, move the pocket still. Get Penix out there on one of the wings. And if you're running those deep plays and they're leaving the center of the field open, we saw Penix can run the ball. Utilize that, man. Get those 10-yard, 15-yard chunks, get out of bounds and get the first down. Live to play another set of downs. And I think that's something that we could really work with here. If you're getting all their DBs on the field and you're attacking deep, there's going to be space for him to run if they need it. And I think this is a place where we know that utilizing Penix for what he can do athletically has worked the last few games. Even though we didn't show it most of the season, we know it can work. And I think in a game like this, you pull out all the stops.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You ain't keeping nothing in the cupboard for this game. Everything's coming out, all stops. I just want to say this, because I already kind of mentioned it, but I really want this to be like something that, dude, clip it up, man. So this is the truth, dude. This is not Jaden Milrow. This isn't Bama, dude. We have better wide receivers. We have a better offensive line. We have a 10 times better quarterback. I'm sorry, man. You can't just freaking bring pressure and more pressure and blitz packages. Dude, that Michael Penix won't fall for that. And so if you think that that's how easy it's going to be, it's not. So that's why I said earlier, it's like, try to keep everything in front of you. Don't let UW score in the 30s. I'll get to that on my pick, but I'm telling you, Don't let UW get 30 points.
Yep. All right. Let's go to the other side of the ball now. And, one of the first places we like to start talking about is how this UW secondary is going to do against the Michigan pass offense. While the numbers aren't extremely gaudy, I mean, Michigan doesn't have one wide receiver with over 45 yards, and all of their big receivers had multiple games with under 3 receptions. They are very efficient. I mean, like I said, 73%, it was 73 or 74% completion percentage for JJ McCarthy. He only threw 4 interceptions all year. But I kind of feel like we match up actually pretty well. Like when we think about the teams that we've played, whether it was Oregon or Texas, which really had good receiving corps, this receiving corps is not as established as those receiving corps. So how do we see this UW secondary playing against this Michigan pass offense?
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of even talk about a little bit of the linebackers here, as well, because, you know, I remember looking at Roman Wilson coming out of I think Honolulu, right? He's a Hawaii kid. I know UW was recruiting him, and I mean, he's fast. He's small, twitchy guy. And then you got Cornelius Johnson. I'm sorry, yeah, Cornelius Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Another one of their wide receivers, more of a big body down threat kind of guy. But the biggest thing I see as I kind of break down their passing, abilities is everything comes off of play action, and they love using no pun intended, I guess, but they love using Loveland and Barner. Loveland has 42 catches for 585 yards, both with the ability to make plays. And I think that I think we actually match up pretty well. I mean, I don't think I don't think last game we were like, do you put Jabbar Muhammad on, AD? Do you put Jabbar Muhammad on Xavier Worthy? I think we probably just run straight forward here with Thad Dixon and Jackson and Jabbar, and kind of see where it takes us. And the reason why I brought up the linebackers is because I think with Loveland and Barner and how often they get used in this offense, I think you'll really see, some of our linebackers be put in situations to have to guard those guys. And I think that's where you'll see guys like Bruner, and Eddie really kind of come to light with their as we've seen all year with how well they do with guarding the pass against the tight ends.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that if we happen to get Michigan into a shootout where they have to throw the ball, I think that's where they're actually in trouble. Izzo, what do you think?
I think JJ McCarthy gets the ball out quick, and that's part of the reason why he has a high completion percentage, is because they don't take any shots. This is not a team that's going to beat you over the top. I'm not afraid of this offense. Let me get that. Like Noah had just said, if you score 30, if you're in the 30s, you're in trouble. And that's true here. And there's a couple of reasons. One is the linebackers, Michigan, a key group against Michigan has been the linebacking crew against them. And we are deep at linebacker. I'm not fearful there. And we're going to be able to wrap up and get and come downhill on Blake Corum. And he's going to break a couple. Like, just be prepared for that. That's if he doesn't, they are not going to score more than 17 points in this game. So he has to. Okay. The other piece is JTT for Ohio State and Sawyer had a field day, like graded out phenomenally well against their edges, right? Outside, like, I know Iowa's got some guys too, and they graded out pretty well as well. Braylon Trice is going to be a problem in this game for this offense. He's gonna create a lot of issues in that backfield. And I know that McCarthy, he doesn't tend to throw picks, but they're going to have to get those guys open. And like Noah said, where you're kind of bringing Thaddeus and EJ and Jabbar to kind of push up on these receivers. They don't have the guys that are going to get wide open unless McCarthy has time. He's going to get flushed, and he's going to have to make some plays on the run, just like he did against Bama. He made a couple plays like that.
Yep.
As you look at this too, Izzo, I think to your point, talking about the edges, dude, I think this kind of game is where like a Thule and an MJ Ale actually match up well, like better against. Not that they can't play the pass a little bit, but I mean, dude, they're two big old, as we use the word, hog mollies in there, and they're both dudes that probably take, especially Thule, you're gonna have to double team him. I don't care, especially with Michigan losing center. I mean, they got a nice offensive line, but dude, Thule's a game wrecker on the inside, and then being able to run the ball and just push them around, that ain't gonna happen.
Dude,
Yep.
if McCarthy's on the run and he tries to throw the ball up like he did during that Alabama game, if he is that like whimsical with the ball and just throwing it, dude,
Yep.
He'll make mistakes.
you're gonna be making big mistakes in this game. You cannot if Michigan has 2 turnovers in this game, it's over. Like straight up.
Yep.
You're
Hey,
going to
Yep.
be giving the ball to Mike Penix way too often, and they need to control time of possession. Michigan
so
has to control time of possession in this game.
all right, I'm gonna skip. I'm not gonna skip over this, but I'm gonna come back to the UW rush defense. Let's talk about this UW pass rush against that O line because that plays right into what we're talking about with this secondary. How do we see that UW pass rush working against him to create those pressures that you're talking about? Because I think you're completely right. Trice was all over the place, and same thing with ZTF. I mean, we saw Durfee even get in there on some plays, and Jacob Lane that zoom package, if we force them into them having to actually pass protect, how do we see that playing out, especially with a receiving core that's not as strong as what we saw before? And McCarthy being a guy that does do the dink and dunk passes. He's not a guy that is going to be attacking deep on this defense.
Yeah.
How do we see that playing out? How do you see our pass rush doing against that really good Michigan offensive line?
Yeah, for me, a lot of times when you talk about like how can you get into this offensive line? How can is it going to be certain blitz packages? Are we going to have to run some stunts up front with like a loop or whatever it is? I really do think that against elite competition, kind of like what Izzo just said. I mean, their offensive tackles have actually been a little vulnerable. I mean, if you look at Michigan, they've given up 19 sacks, but JJ McCarthy's only thrown the ball 314 times. UW's given up 11 sacks, but passed the ball literally 200 more times.
Mm-hmm.
So, so if I kind of want to just see, let's see Trice go man on man. You better chip him because if you don't chip him, he's going to eat your left tackle alive
Oh yeah.
or whoever's playing one of that tackle positions. And then same thing with ZTF. Dude, ZTF's just as twitchy. And dude, he can get up and get around that edge too. And with the rotation now we have with Sakai and Durfee, it only allows our guys to be fresher throughout a full game.
I
Agreed.
wonder if they attack that right side of the line because their right tackle, Trent Jones, is really good. And so an interesting matchup quietly is going to be ZTF against him because he was pretty dominant against Alabama. He had a great game.
Okay.
But yeah,
You got the Izzo, do you have that right there? How did Dallas Turner play against for Bama? Do you have that?
3.3 grade that he didn't do very great. Middle of the road.
Yeah, that's middle of the road.
Got it. Yeah,
Okay.
I know that he entered the NFL draft today, so I was just wondering.
Oh, I did see that as well. I did see that as well. Now, the big thing that Michigan does really, really well, and I kind of saved this for last, is Michigan is a running team. Corum was a Heisman finalist last year. I know a lot of people had him on their ballot last year. This year he went for 1,100 yards. What did we say? 25 touchdowns. Was that what
Yep.
it was? That what it was? I mean, you can't ignore that, and that's something that is going to be big, especially when we've had struggles. I mean, we gave up a lot of yards against Texas against the run. One of the things that I wanted to point out that happens here, and I remember I was Cam Cleveland was talking about this, was wanting to against Texas to put that fifth defensive lineman in to try to plug it up, but they couldn't do that because Texas had the wide receiving core that you couldn't leave open like that. That would leave us too susceptible. Michigan doesn't have that. So if I'm UW, am I gonna think about putting that extra defensive lineman in like we did against some of those teams that didn't have great passing offenses, but really good rushing offenses? Izzo, what do you think when you're like, you're watching this and you need to stop this run game because if we don't, it's going to be a long day for us.
They bring in a fullback. He's 6'2", 245 pounds. Big dude.
Matt, is that Max Breedson or 44?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is a beast. So in that scenario, you have to bring in my opinion, like unless you see on tape, and I hadn't watched this, whether or not that they bounce it outside when he's in the game, you just have to be cognizant of what they do to create confusion when they bring that fullback in. And their center is actually quietly very good, Drake Nugent. He's just been kind of like a very consistent guy for them. So if you think about a fullback and a center. We haven't played anybody that does anything like this. This is Big Ten football.
Yeah.
You probably do have to bring in another big ugly. And I have a idea.
Let's hear it.
Give me Javon Parker. Dude, he's been so solid, man. He comes in for 6-7 snaps or whatever, and every time he's in there, he makes an impact play. So I'd love to see him get spelled in.
Like 7 or 8 snaps, but like 6 of them are like 100s or whatever.
Like
you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of the thing that I think people don't realize about UW is that on the inside, we actually have a lot of size, whether it's Bandis, whether it's Tuli, whether it's Tuitele, whether it's MJ Ale, the Parker twins. These guys are all 300 pounders. They're all guys that, hey, if we need to plug up the middle, we have the dudes to do it. And I mean, also, what's coming behind them are Carson Bruners, Eddie's, Go Forth, Tupatala, all them guys. They're going to matter a lot. And we know our edges hold it down. They're already big dudes. We can actually, size for size, line up with them. A lot of people think that UW doesn't have that, but we do.
That's why the linebackers are so key in this game. They got to play discipline back there
and make tackles. And I think also guys like Dom coming up and playing in the box is going to be something that you're going to see a lot more of. And you know what? That's what he likes to do, though. He likes to go up there and hit somebody in the mouth. Mich, I mean, if they try to attack the outside, Mich tackles great. Let's let him go up there and do that. Same thing with our corners. Our corners have become really, really, really good tacklers. So I'm excited about how that matchup is going to work out, especially if the DBs are playing really solid, because I have a feeling they're going to be on islands a lot, being who the receiving cores are. And if they can do well against the receivers, and we can bring that extra defensive lineman in, an extra dude in the box, it's going to be a long day for Michigan. And that's kind of is there anything else you guys want to talk about with the running game, or are we good?
No.
All right. Let's kind of look to how we see this game playing out, because we just kind of talked about like what we think they're gonna do. They're gonna attack us with the run to open up the pass. It's not gonna go the other way around. If it does, they're gonna be in trouble. What do we see having to happen for UW? Like, if you're gonna take this everything we just talked about and put it into a whole, how do we see this playing out and UW being able to get the win? How is that gonna look for us to win?
I think that Harbaugh and Moore, and their staff, I think they realize that they don't have the elite offense, that they're going against. So they're going to do everything in their power, really, to like limit UW's possessions. They are going to try to have 6, 8, 10-minute type drives. If you remember, I can't remember. I think it was the Penn State game, dude. I think they ran the ball 32 straight times. 32 straight times. And as I started watching the rest of their games the last day and a half, it's like, dude, I just want to see us bring another person in the box. And I know J.J. McCarthy was a 5-star kid out of IMG, has all the accolades. But you know what? At the end of the night, if you bring another player in the box and you try to shut down Blake Corum, you try to shut down Donovan Edwards, and you do that and JJ beats you, what have I said in the past? Sometimes you look across the field and you just go, tip your hat and say, hey, nice game plan, you got us. But if we can do that, if we can shut down that run, I truly, truly believe on Monday night we'll be hosting the trophy. And I'm just gonna get right into it, boys. I said it to start and I'll say it right now. If Michigan can keep this game in the 20s, they'll win.
Yeah.
If they can't keep the game in the 20s and UW gets 30, I don't care if it's 31 points. 31-26, Dogs win this game. That's my prediction right there.
All right, that's the prediction. All right, Izzo, what do you think?
Here's what I got. I am not afraid of Tyler Morris. I'm not afraid of Roman Wilson. Okay. Let's sell out for the pass. Kyle McCord had receivers open, but he couldn't hit them. Jalen Milroe was 70% in this last game. Kyle McCord was 62%. If Michael Penix is even in the middle of that at 65%, 66%, that's not going to work for Michigan, man. At the end of the day, You have the X factor. We can break down all the X's and O's, but you have, it might be boring now that we've said it so many times, but you have the best player in college football on your team.
Mm.
And
That's facts.
he is that type of dude. I got the Dogs winning 32-27.
Okay. Now, I agree with you a lot. Kyle McCord actually threw for 60% against Michigan and threw 2 picks. And I think that speaks more to McCord as a quarterback as opposed to Ohio State as a whole. And I think
there's a reason he's not at Ohio State anymore.
exactly. He's going to Syracuse.
Yeah, and this is like we were saying, just real quick, Mike, before you go. We talked up their defensive backs. Like, they're very good. They're very physical. But dude, they gave up, and I know they're not thrown all the time. Milrow's not thrown all the time, but 70% to Milrow. Do you think it's doable that Mike Penix can throw 65%?
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely. Well, one of the things that I think, because I actually totally agree with you, and I think what they might try to do is try to take the deep ball away, because that was the closest thing that anybody had to success when they played us. But Penix also proved that when he takes what's given to him, he can still have a big game, still throw for 300 yards, maybe not even get a touchdown. Maybe he just gets us down and we just hand the ball off and we score. But I think the X factor might not actually be on the field. I think Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb are the X factors.
Great.
I think, first of all, when you saw my prediction last week, one of the big things I talked about was there is not a coaching staff in America that is better at making halftime adjustments than our coaching staff. We're always close at halftime, and when they make those adjustments, they're always making better adjustments than our counterparts. And I think Kalen DeBoer is a blue blood killer. And I think
I like that.
I think our offensive line is the Great Wall of Dubs, bro. That's what it is. It's the Great Wall of Dubs, and it's going to be really, really hard for these guys to play us. And I think you're going to see that early. And I'll tell you this: part of me thinks that they think they can line straight up with us, and they're not going to play that over the top. And if that's what happens, I think you're going to see us jump out early, and I think you're going to see us lean on them the whole game. And I see us beating them 35-23.
Next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whenever we record the victory pod, baby, I'm gonna be sitting here with my feet up, with my Jordans on,
cigar in the mouth,
Jordans on, with maybe some bourbon. Let's living that life, dude. So that's a great call, Mikey.
Absolutely. All right, so you guys, just so you know, the Dubbed Up podcast is brought to you by Auto Presents. If you're into anything hip hop that is in Seattle, make sure you go to autogang.com. Bamboo will be in town January 13th. It's sold out though, so you can't get your tickets anymore. Also, if you have not hit the like, subscribe, or comment button, go do that. And the biggest thing, the thing that I am the most, I'm going to press harder than anything, join our Discord. All the crazy information on who's hurt, who's healthy, who might be coming into town, who might be getting recruited, who's going to be part of this UW program, and this news hits the Discord first. It's free to join, but for $8 a month, you literally get all the VIP information. The chat is amazing, so make sure you go hit that button.
So I'm excited about this. What we're going to start doing as we head into the off season is we're going to start going live on Twitch and kind of doing a multi-platform approach to Dubbed Up podcast. And this is going to be awesome because basically as we go live on Twitch, we can talk about whatever we want live throughout the day. It's going to be able to allow us to react quicker, get videos and more videos out to you guys faster. We all know in the off season with recruiting, all of those different types of things, that stuff happens fast and people want to know like opinions, and we want to bring on many, many different faces. So expect to see a lot more of all the guys that you see on Twitter. As much as they would like to come and join us, we'd love to have them. And I just think it's going to be fun because you can actually pose questions right to us as we're talking about things. Noah, Mike, or Maddie Stein, Juicy Jensen, whoever it is that comes on with us.
Yep.
As we're going to be saving tweets throughout the day, and you think of it as like a video element to spaces. And hopefully what we're going to be trying to figure out is pushing this out to spaces as well, so that if speakers want to join and not be on camera, that they can do so as well. So we're super excited about that. We're going to have a lot more videos. It's probably going to be a lot more wham bam. We're going to talk some basketball. We're going to get into all that good stuff. So
one of the coolest questions really quick is that people always ask us is like, hey, you get this new recruit, Noah Carter, or, the transfer from Arizona State, BJ Green. They're like, Izzo, Noah, Mike. How do you see this guy fitting into the Husky defense? It'll be a perfect opportunity for us to like watch film and then talk about, hey, see how he's a game wrecker, or see how he does a certain move, or see how maybe he's more of a rush end. He looks like he's more of like a, maybe not a boundary end, he's more of a field end, and so it'll be a perfect opportunity for us to really kind of get into a lot of the just deeper questions and like deep diving into each player, each transfer, each recruit. So it's exciting times.
It's almost like we'll be studying together at some of that point.
And I mean, with you guys at the same time, and then cutting that and then putting that onto YouTube for 15-minute videos, 20-minute videos, and just getting more stuff out to you guys on all platforms. So it's easily accessible.
Seriously though, if Mike mentioned it, Izzo and I will be in Houston, man. Please say hi. This community, man, means the world to us. It's like Izzo said, man. There's been a lot of late nights for all of us, man.
I think if we have a link for our Twitch, we put that down in the so there'll be a link. There'll be a link for the Twitch. Be part of this because we're interactive. We don't just say hi. We don't just watch what you guys are doing. We want you guys to be part of what we do. Normally we'll do Discord questions and all that. We're running out of time because it's a crazy week. So for my guy Izzo, for my guy Noah, I'm Mike Flaunt, and this is the Dubbed Up Podcast. Go Dogs.
Go get the natty. Go get the natty, baby. Go Dogs.
15-0, baby. 15-0.
That's what I'm talking about.
Let's go.
Good show, fellas.